Santa Claus is coming to town. Or is he? Someone is coming to town on the 25th of December, but who will it be? Old Saint Nick, Santa Claus, Kris Kringle, Père Noël, Father Christmas, or even the Yule Father. Hi, my name is Hannah and welcome to my channel, where we talk about history, and today we are going to discuss the history of Father Christmas. I will try and keep this as streamlined as possible, but as I've just mentioned,
I mean the big fat man with the long white beard
has a lot of different names, and as such, different origins. But before we start, if you haven't already, please make sure you like and subscribe. A Christmas carol from the 15th century is the earliest evidence we have for a personified Christmas. In this carol, the character is called Sir Christmas, and he shares the news or the birth of Jesus Christ and tells the audience to make good cheer and be right merry. However, this still isn't the Father Christmas that we know and love. Another precursor to the Jolly Man in Red can be found in York, where a festival called the Yule Ridings took place on the 21st of December. A man would be disguised as Yule and would carry around cakes and meat through the streets and throw nuts into the crowd. This festival was ultimately banned in 1572 after complaints of very rude and barbarous behaviour. The Tudors and Stuarts had their own traditions within the aristocratic houses, which I'm not going to go into now, but it saw another personification of Christmas, as people were given names like Captain Christmas, the Christmas Lord, or Prince Christmas. Christmas was temporarily banned in England and Scotland during the Dark Ages of Oliver Cromwell. As Christmas went, so did the figure associated with it. Christmas returned, hooray, after the restoration of King Charles II, also known as the Merry Monarch, which saw the reintroduction of Father Christmas, who went on to appear in plays over the next 200 years. But, as Ronald Hutton says in The Stations of the Sun, he remained far removed from our understanding of the man. He was essentially concerned with the adult world, personifying feasting and games. He had no connection with presents, and he was not treated with much respect, being generally a burlesque figure of fun. The 19th century saw the release of Charles Dickens' hugely popular A Christmas Carol. As a result, Father Christmas enjoyed a boost in popularity as he was closely associated with the ghost of Christmas present from A Christmas Carol, and Father Christmas became linked with garlands of holly on his head with lots of food and drinking. As the Victorian society changed, so did Christmas. Victorian families were focusing more on spending time with each other and their children, as well as the feasting, drinking and merriment, and Father Christmas adapted with the change of society. The Yule Father. The first historical figure we're going to look into is the Yule Father. In Norse mythology, they believed that the god Odin, the father of Thor, flew over their houses on his flying 8-legged horse, Sleipnir, dropping bread for the hungry to enjoy in the cold midwinter at the feast of Yule. As a result, Odin would sometimes be referred to as the Yule Father.
I do not understand.
I do. I understood that reference.
Obviously, they saw Father Christmas and his reindeer and thought it was Odin.
Pretty obvious.
Father Christmas. So, when did the Yule Father become Father Christmas? The Yule Father in England goes as far back as the Saxons. They had a lot of beef with the Vikings, who were trying to invade us, and some Danes settled, and that's how their influence spread. The pagan Saxons honoured the Frost or Winter King, who had some similarities with Odin, but as Christianity became more prominent in England, the Yule Father and the Winter Festival became more associated with celebrating the birth of Jesus. In the 1400s, Father Christmas was a chivalric knight called Sir Christmas, and during the reign of the Tudors, he had been renamed to Captain Christmas, and his job was to make sure that everybody was having fun at the Yuletide feasts. Captain Christmas made everyone happy during the dark, depressing season of winter, where it was cold and crops were out of season. Oliver Cromwell hated fun, so he outlawed Christmas.
You what?
Fearing that it had become an excuse to get drunk.
That's the point!
So Cromwell and his government renamed Captain Christmas to Old Father Christmas to try and give him more respect. When the monarchy was restored with Charles II, Old Father Christmas drops the old and in the UK has been Father Christmas ever since. That's one story of how the Yule Father became Father Christmas. But as with many things in history, that's not the only story. Playwright Ben Jonson wrote Christmas, His Mask, which was performed at the Royal Court of King James I in 1616. In the play, the character of Christmas has a long, thin beard and refers to himself as Old Christmas. He scolds the guards who refuse to let him into the party and tells them that he is as good a Protestant as any in my parish, which was relevant because at the time, Christmas celebrations were coming under attack from Puritans. Jonson's character of Christmas was an old father who had several sons and daughters named Misrule, Carol, Mince Pie, Mumming, and Wazzle. Carol, as some of you may know, is also the name of Mrs. Claus, or generally accepted as the name of Mrs. Claus, at least in the Santa Claus movies anyway. One key difference is that Christmas did not bring the gifts, it was one of his sons that brought gifts. He brought an orange and a sprig of rosemary with a collar of gingerbread, and a bottle of wine on either arm. Between 1542 and 1651, the Puritan attack on Christmas intensified. Eagle-eyed viewers will know that the English Civil War occurred between these dates. Royalists defended Christmas, and in hopes of defending their festival, they personified the season. A pamphlet from 1645 named The Arraignment, Conviction and Imprisonment of Christmas. This pamphlet tells the story of a woman who asked the town crier where old Father Christmas has gone, to which he replies that the poor old man was arraigned, condemned, and after conviction cast into prison amongst the king's soldiers, fearing to be hanged. Parliament banned Christmas along with Easter, Whitsun, and other traditional holidays in 1647.
Hold my poodle.
But Father Christmas would return in another pamphlet in 1652. God, us Brits love our pamphlets. By the royalist John Taylor, called The Vindication of Christmas, and he featured again in 1658 in a pamphlet, told you that we loved pamphlets, called The Examination and Trial of Old Father Christmas. Again, Christmas was shown as a man with a long white beard and old-fashioned fur-trimmed gown. By the late 19th century, Father Christmas was the centre of the Christmas festivities and was even used in wartime propaganda, delivering presents to the British troops serving in Afghanistan. Father Christmas, or Santa Claus, is most commonly known as or known to have originated from or associated with Saint Nicholas. And increasingly, Father Christmas seems to be slowly replaced with the American Santa Claus. Saint Nicholas. Saint Nicholas, or Nicholas of Bari, was born in 280 AD in Patara, near Myra in modern-day Turkey. During his life, Saint Nicholas would be imprisoned by the Roman Emperor Diocletian, but freed by Constantine the Great, before dying on the 6th of December 343. The date of his death would become known as St. Nicholas Day. But his run-in with the Romans is not what he would be known for. It would be his kindness and generosity that would lead old St. Nick to be immortalised in the fat man that comes down your chimney every year. Nicholas's parents were very wealthy, and they had longed for a child. After years of trying, God answered their prayers. His conception and birth was viewed as a miracle. Nicholas would become an orphan at an early age, as his parents would unfortunately die as a result of an epidemic that spread throughout Myra. Nicholas would be raised by his uncle, the Bishop of Myra, who was proud of his nephew, as Nicholas was a well-behaved boy. Allegedly, the Bishop of Myra announced to everyone at his church that he believed that his nephew Nicholas was destined to bring joy to people. Nicholas became a monk, and he would take his uncle's place as the Bishop of Myra. Nicholas was part of the First Council of Nicaea. He was also opposed to the corruption that he saw in the Catholic Church, and there are records to support this claim, meaning that even if the stories of him being Santa Claus aren't real, we do know that Saint Nicholas as a person was. Nicholas would have no children of his own, but that didn't stop him from helping the children in his town. He would make toys for them to play with. Nicholas is said to have given away his inherited wealth and travelled the countryside, helping the poor and the sick. In one tale, Nicholas financially supported a man in his village who had 3 beautiful daughters, but the man couldn't afford a dowry for them, which would mean that the women would be sold into slavery. Nicholas, desperate to help but not wanting to hurt the man's pride, dropped a bag of gold down the chimney, which landed in the stockings that were hanging up to dry. The bag of gold allowed the father to pay for the dowry of his eldest daughter, who was then married. Nicholas would repeat this twice more for the other 2 daughters. He was eventually caught in the act, but word of Nicholas's kindness and generosity spread, and the townspeople began to leave their shoes and stockings by the fireplace in hopes that they would receive gold from Nicholas. Over time, this led to 2 traditions. One, hanging up your stockings and leaving gifts for children on the night before the 6th of December, which was Nicholas's death day and future St. Nicholas Day, and 2, the exchanging of gifts amongst the community. This was inspired when the people of Myra received anonymous gifts which they assumed were from Nicholas. St. Nicholas is also alleged to have performed many miracles, one of which credits Nicholas resurrecting 3 youths who had been murdered and pickled in a barrel by an innkeeper. Nicholas was a holy man and later became canonized as Saint Nicholas, the patron saint of children and sailors.
You are without doubt the worst pirate I've ever heard of.
But you have heard of me.
Saint Nick's fame reached further than Turkey and even went as far as medieval Europe, after his relics were rescued from Myra and taken to Italy in 1087 or 1087. The 6th of December is known as St. Nicholas or St. Nicholas's feast day, and it was traditionally considered a lucky day to make large purchases or to get married. St. Nick's popularity only grew. He survived the Protestant Reformation, which cracked down on the veneration of saints, and by the Renaissance, he was the most popular saint in Europe. The saint that is known for gift giving being the most popular saint, I wonder why. In my opinion, it was probably because he gave hope and enjoyment in a dark and depressing winter, as well as giving free stuff away. St. Nicholas was especially popular in Holland. In the Netherlands, special markets would sell toys and treats for St. Nicholas's Day, and St. Nicholas, or Sinterklaas, as he was known over there, would have people dressed up in red bishop's costumes for the enjoyment of those in the crowd. Sinterklaas. Can I just say I love saying Sinterklaas? Sinterklaas was the name the Dutch gave to St. Nicholas, but with the odd difference. They believed that the Sinterklaas, like the Yule Father, travelled by flying horse, but that he also had his assistants help him choose the good children who deserved to get presents. However, Sinterklaas had an issue, and his name was Martin Luther. Martin Luther was in a nutshell the founder of Protestantism, and he felt that Sinterklaas was too similar to the pagan Yule Father. So Luther decided that an angelic Christ child named Christkindl was the one that brought the gifts. He also changed the dates that the gifts were delivered from St. Nicholas's Day on the 6th of December to Jesus' birthday, the 25th of December. Like his English counterpart, Father Christmas, Sinterklaas came under attack during the Protestant Reformation. The Protestants were trying to move away from the worship or respect of saints. It was thought that the baby Jesus would be more appropriate for the holiday as a gift giver. Christkindl, as he was known as, was anglicised to Kris Kringle. The story of Sinterklaas doesn't stop there. He also had his own universe created with other characters such as the Krampus, Per Futard, which meant Old Man Whipper, Rue Claus, Rough Nicholas, Pelsnickel, Fury Nicholas, and Neck Rupert, Farmhand Rupert. I mean, I've probably butchered the pronunciation of all of them except from Krampus, but there you go. Whereas Nicholas would hand out gifts to whoever he felt like, Christkindl or Kris Kringle was believed to deliver presents to those who were well behaved. In Scandinavia, it was thought that a jolly elf named Jotelman delivered gifts in a sleigh pulled by goats, and Père Noël in France was responsible for filling the shoes of French children, while in Italy there was a story of a woman called La Befana, a kind witch who rides a broomstick down children's chimneys to deliver toys into the stockings of good children. Santa Claus. Kris Kringle wasn't the only figure to spawn from Sinterklaas. You may have guessed it, but Santa Claus also owes his origins to Sinterklaas.
Pretty obvious.
Many Dutch settlers brought the old traditions of Sinterklaas with them when they emigrated to America, and in New York in 1809, Washington Irving helped to morph Sinterklaas into Santa Claus in his book The History of New York. Sinterklaas was described as everything from a rascal with a blue, three-cornered hat, red waistcoat, and yellow stockings, to a man wearing a broad-brimmed hat and a huge pair of Flemish trunk hose. Some historians believe that Irving, along with other New Yorkers, invented new traditions to make a more family-orientated holiday in New York, which had begun to suffer from violent drunken mobs around the 25th of December. On the 23rd of December 1951, the Catholic clergy at Dijon organised an execution of Santa Claus. An image of him was hanged from the railings of the cathedral and then burned in front of hundreds of schoolchildren. Other artists and authors would add layers to Santa Claus over the years, and gradually Santa Claus took over from St. Nicholas and Sinterklaas. Clement Moore's poem A Visit from Santa Claus, published in 1823, set out many of the characteristics of Santa Claus. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf. He arrived on a sleigh drawn by reindeer and came down the chimney with a sack of toys for children. Clement Moore described Santa Claus to us, but it was illustrator Thomas Nast who fixed the appearance of the jolly old elf. His early depictions of Mr. Claus show him to be exactly that, a jolly old elf. But in his later work, he portrayed him closer to what we know, a large, jovial, white-bearded figure dressed in a red suit and a matching cap. In 1863, Nast had perfected his vision of Mr. Claus, as seen in his Merry Old Santa Claus. His illustrations for A Visit from St. Nicholas were hugely popular, and he created Santa's workshop, as well as the idea that Santa Claus was based in the North Pole.
Santa! Oh my God! I know him!
It is thought that a year later, in 1864, that Santa Claus made his first visit to England to meet none other than Father Christmas, in a story written by American author Susanna Warner. It was in Warner's story that Santa brought gifts. Prior to this, it had been suggested that gifts were brought by other beings such as elves and fairies, while it was widely known that Father Christmas came down the chimney to put toys and sweets in stockings, like St. Nicholas had done centuries before. By the 1880s, Santa Claus and Father Christmas had started to merge into one. Santa Claus was basically a mishmash of the other figures that we have looked at so far. Santa versus the Father. Christmas as we know it is an Anglo-American creation, and before the merger, the two characters dressed noticeably different. Father Christmas traditionally wore a long red habit, similar to that of a bishop, trimmed with white fur and a hood, as opposed to Santa Claus, who wears a red suit and cap. The French version of Father Christmas, Père Noël, which quite literally translates to Father Christmas, so you could say they are the same, also wears a long habit and a hood. On a 1920s postcard, which, like Father Christmas and Saint Nick, but Père Noël is designed to look more self-disciplined and saintly, unlike the fat, rosy-cheeked English or American versions. As mentioned earlier, it was thought that Santa Claus had elves and fairies to help him deliver presents. But after meeting the hard-working British Father Christmas, who didn't delegate his work, the fairies that surround the Claus disappeared, much to the confusion of the English folklorists in the 1870s. Mr. Edwin Lees wrote in a letter to Notes and Queries in 1879, "On Christmas Eve, when the inmates of a house in the country retire to bed, all those desirous of a present place a stocking outside the door of their bedroom, with the expectation that something mythical, being called Santa Claus, will fill the stockings or place something within it before morning. From what region of the earth or air this benevolent Santa Claus takes flight, I have not been able to ascertain." In the late 19th century, Father Christmas was being depicted as not up to date. The old feasting man would become a figure of the past and be updated to a more modern figure of a fat man dashing through the snow in a one-horse open sleigh with a sack of toys. Again, as mentioned earlier, by the 1880s, the English Father Christmas was now Santa Claus in everything except name. This is very much the case today. I have noticed that some people of my age will refer to Old Saint Nick as both Father Christmas and Santa Claus. The older generation seem to go with Father Christmas, and I've noticed that the younger generation tend to go with Santa Claus. But is this down to the amount of American media that we consume in the UK? I don't know, that's just my little thought process dropped in there. Another comparison is what we leave out for the gift giver. And again, this changes depending on what country you are from or in. But in the States, now correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I've seen on TV and in movies, I've come to believe that it is common practice to leave a glass of milk and some cookies out for Old Saint Nick. However, here in England, we traditionally leave out sherry and a mince pie, and some carrots for the reindeer. Although I personally have never left out sherry, and I think sherry is more commonly being replaced with brandy and whiskey, I think I left out whiskey. Either way, Father Christmas is drink driving and is probably absolutely smashed by the time he has finished England. Santa versus Coca-Cola. It is often believed that Santa Claus gained his red coat and synonymous image from a Coca-Cola advert that was published in the 1930s. But his modern image can be credited much earlier than the 1930s.
You sit on a throne of lies.
In 1809, Washington Irving claims that old Dutch families told tales of Sinterklaas on St. Nicholas Day, and how old St. Nick was said to fly over the city of New York in a wagon and climb down chimneys to deliver presents. Years later, in 1821, an anonymous illustrated poem called Old Sinterklaas, with much delight, introduced Santa Claus's red coat, reindeer, and a sleigh. This poem also stated that Father Christmas arrived on Christmas Eve, rather than St. Nicholas Day, the 6th of December. 2 years later, in 1823, the modern image of Father Christmas was immortalised as a jolly man with a white beard wearing a red coat and trousers in the United States and Canada by a little poem called A Visit from St. Nicholas. Never heard of it? Well, maybe you have heard of its other name. 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, and it was written by Clement Moore for his 3 daughters. In the poem, Saint Nick got his bushy beard, and not just 1 reindeer, but 8. The image of a bishop was dropped, and instead he was described as a right jolly elf, with clothes all tarnished with ashes and soot, twinkling eyes, merry dimples, and a beard as white as snow. So why do we give Coca-Cola the credit? BBC News magazine says, the red suit and hat with the white fur trim have given rise to the belief among some that Santa's togs were dreamed up by canny advertising men who recast him in the soft drink makers' corporation colours. But while there's some truth in the suggestion, Coke ran a campaign for 30 years featuring a jolly fat Santa. His colour scheme owes more to ecclesiastical vestments than a brainstorm on Madison Avenue. The colours are widely thought to derive from the original St. Nicholas, who was the Bishop of Myra in the 4th century. Red and white were the hues of traditional bishop robes, although some historians argue that he originally dressed in different colours. Coke ran their marketing campaign that featured Father Christmas for 3 decades, so it's easy to see how this misconception has been made, especially when, and I know that I've been told this before, I don't know whether it's a rumour, a myth, whatever you want to call it, but it was spread that St. Nicholas originally was wearing green and white, and that it was Coca-Cola that swapped out the green for red.
You sit on a throne of lies.
Type in the comment section down below if you've heard this, because I'd actually find that quite interesting. Because, yeah, I know for a fact that I was told that, oh, did you know that actually St. Nicholas wore green and white and it was Coca-Cola that turned it red and white? When actually, no, he wore red and white all along. So let me know in the comment section if you've also been told that. The lie about St. Nick being green is an easy enough lie to believe. And why would Coca-Cola want to address it when it just adds to the success of their marketing? Their Father Christmas is warm and kind, sharing his Coca-Cola. He had a luscious white beard and wears a long red jacket trimmed with white fur and fastened with a belt, and the outfit is complete with black boots. Researcher Tom Glaman adds, Father Christmas is an evolutionary creation influenced by folklore, legend, and religion. He didn't spring to life at a certain time, fully formed and wearing a red and white suit. It wasn't really until the late 19th century that the image now recognised across the world became set. And I personally think that is very true, and sometimes easily forgotten. So I'm going to leave this episode here. As always, let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. And if you haven't already, share this video with a friend, especially if that friend thinks that St. Nicholas's clothes were originally green. But until the next one, have a wonderful day and have an amazing Christmas.